Hello, hello. Welcome to Reading Time. My name's Time, and this week we're reading Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Let's get to reading. Little Women is a book about four sisters named Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy as they grow up during the Victorian era in America. Over the course of the book, each of the girls goes through growing up and finding out what it is to become a woman. I really enjoyed this book generally. However, there were a few things that felt a little overdone for me, and those are just elements of the time period that this was written in. For example, this book is very moralistic and it pushes those morals quite a bit, which can be a good thing, but I did feel it was a bit overdone. However, I did still really enjoy this book as a piece of historical fiction, and as such, I am giving it 4.5 stars out of 5. Characters are lovely, and it's a very wholesome, feel-good sort of book, one that I do highly recommend. I actually enjoyed it enough that I plan on watching its film adaptation very soon. I'm very excited to see how the recent 2019 adaptation did. This book does have a bit of content to be aware of. First off, there is some substance usage throughout the book in the form of alcohol. A couple of the girls drink at various points, as well as one of their friends. However, the moral of the importance of not drinking is pushed at one point as well. This book also does have instances of death and loss that are pretty prominent points in the book. And as this book takes place during the American Civil War, there are mentions of war and the fears that go alongside with that. As far as reading level goes for this book, I would put it at a 4th through 8th grade reading level. The youngest of the March girls at the beginning of the book is about 11, and by the time the book is finished, the girls are all much older, but for a good amount of the time, they are in their teens to early young adult years. For a younger reader in those later elementary school years, I would suggest that they read it with an adult. But middle schoolers and even high schoolers, I think, would enjoy it just on their own. Now, as I said earlier, this book is heavily moralistic. It is very influenced by Christian theology and Christian morals, as well as Victorian ideals, especially those ideals surrounding womanhood and the responsibilities of a woman. Now, some of these ideas are still applicable today. Some of them are applicable within certain contexts, but this book does feel a little outdated in a modern world. And that's okay. Books that were written in a previous time period do not need to fit with the ideals and expectations of today's society. These books are often a representation of the time period they were written in, and it would be silly to assume that authors would be able to predict the future and write stories always for a future audience instead of a current one. One point, though, that is very focused on in this book is the idea of becoming a wife and a homemaker, and the responsibilities associated with that. These ideals of becoming a homemaker or becoming skilled in what was known as the womanly arts, I think is still beneficial. However, I don't think it necessarily should be limited to one gender. Knowing how to take care of oneself and one's family is important for everyone, I would say. So that is something that could be discussed further in an academic context. And maybe it could also be explored in a more modern setting of what would Little Women look like if it was written today instead of in the 1860s. One other thing I want to mention in line with the idea of marriage is that most of the girls end up married by the end of the book. And while this would make it a happy ending, and each of the girls has some form of a happy ending, the ending of the book doesn't actually feel very satisfactory in my opinion. Characters who feel like they should end up together don't end up together, and a character who feels like she shouldn't marry, that she would be able to move through life as a so-called spinster, ends up getting married in the end, and it feels a little forced. And that is actually because this character was supposed to originally end up as a spinster, and that was going to be her ending. But publishers wouldn't publish the book unless all of the girls got a happy ending of sorts, and unless this particular character ended up getting married. So there is a little bit of discontent with that ending. It doesn't feel satisfactory, even if it is happy. It doesn't necessarily feel totally true to the character. Another idea for how you could talk about this book is looking at that ending. What would make it more satisfactory? What would change if these characters hadn't been changed for publication? As I said, it's a good book. I recommend it. There are a few outdated details, but I don't think that should stop anyone from reading it. For the poster square for this week, we are down here with what appears to be the silhouettes of the 4 March girls. Let me know what you think of Little Women in the comments down below. And feel free to also comment any book recommendations you have. If you are not already, feel free to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Facebook or Instagram for updates about what I'm reading. And as always, I hope that you have a marvelous week and a wonderful read.